You must have guessed, but I was looking through your things. I found that picture of you from 1977, standing in front of an old windmill with your friend. You went there, and it was a bad idea. Your friend and the windmill both disappeared into thin air. Her sister was holding the camera. She took another picture minutes later, just you, no windmill, and no friend. You married her sister, and years later, your friend was reborn as your daughter. Your wife won't admit this is true, but I know it, because I found the evidence. Your friend never returned with you, and the windmill was gone. I went to see it myself. Where is it? What did you do?
So, I've had to think of a few ways to script this video to make it understandable. While I know the title says a realistic explanation of Petscop, the main issue here with explaining Petscop is that surnames are very important in the story. And some characters don't have surnames. So, this right here is a basically family tree of the characters. I'll explain in a part later the theories bit about why I might be wrong here and some other possible ways the tree could be arranged, but for the explanation part, we're gonna roll with this. Now, it should be obvious if you're watching this, there's gonna be spoilers for Petscop. So if you're watching it, plan on watching it, I'd heavily suggest you try to solve the mystery yourself and click off the video. Also, if I have a lisp, it's because I've had a sinus infection turn ear infection, and I can unironically not hear my own mom if she's like 3 feet away from me. So it's hard for me to hear myself, and so if I have like a lisp, I deeply apologize for that. So anyway, let's go ahead and try to explain Petscop. The year is 1977. Marvin Mark, Lena, and Anna Leskowitz are taking a photo in front of a windmill. Anna is the older sister of Lena. Also, throughout the video, I'll be using reference images for characters, so it's a bit easier to track stuff. Hopefully it helps. They were taking a photo in front of a windmill. Anna was holding the camera. She went to go take a photo, and suddenly the windmill and Lena disappeared. They took a photo again, and still no Lena, and still no windmill. This is one of the 2 moments in the series that is just actually unexplainable, and one of the 2 moments you really can't think of a believable explanation here. When this occurred, Lena was 9, and she was never seen again. A few years later, Marvin decided to marry Anna. However, it may not have just been a friendship turned relationship, because Marvin believes in something a bit strange. Marvin believes in rebirth. He thought that by making Anna get pregnant and then having her give birth, he could rebirth Lena. It's presumed either he cared about Lena greatly or that he was a childhood friend to Lena and was devastated when she went missing in the windmill incident. Now, I'm going to bring up 2 other names because they do serve a role here. Jill and Tom. Okay, Tom isn't that important, but just hold up. They are presumably siblings or in some way are related to Anna or the Leskowitz family. Although it's not explained who, I presume Jill is probably the mother of a character named Michael. This is mainly because Anna is referred to as Mike's aunt. And in most marriages, when the woman is married, her surname is changed to the husband's. So it can be assumed Jill Leskowitz married somebody with the surname Hammond, eventually birthed Michael, and that's how Michael came to be. And then there's Rainer, who is, while not fully explained, I believe either related by blood or cares about Michael. Now, it's never explained Michael's death, but in 1995, he did die. It's presumed that by the multiple references to car crashes, he died via a car crash. And with the attitude Rainer seems to have towards Marvin when Marvin was testing the game, it can be assumed it might have been Marvin who ran over Michael. Rainer seems to have this very mean attitude, accusing Marvin of things. And, I mean, he's right about the accusations, but his attitude just seems random compared to the other demo recordings. And a fun little fact, or theory, is that his name might actually be Daniel, judging by a Michael recording where Michael was playing the game and refers to the game as Daniel's game. But judging by the amount of care that Rainer seems to have towards Mike and his honestly rude message in Kersey's description and a reference to him looking for his brother, the fan base assumes that Michael is, by all means, Rainer's brother. So, family tree right now, just so you're all caught up. We have Lena, who's presumably dead or missing. Anna, who is now married to Mark, and they now have Care, their daughter. You have Jill and Tom, who are related maybe via presumably sibling, and they presumably, at least Jill, most likely had Michael and Rainer as children. Anyway, Anna and Marvin were now parents. They lived in a house, and Care had something strange about her. She didn't grow eyebrows, just like Lena. Now, that's most likely due to genetics, but Marvin didn't see it as genetics. He saw it as proof that his rebirth plan was working. Now, Anna was most likely creeped out and disturbed by Marvin basically trying to say, we're rebirthing your sister through your own daughter. And by the calendar that we see, he most likely lost custody and they divorced. He slowly lost custody more and more as time went on. Though to Anna, she was happy. She finally could take care of her daughter and not have to worry about Marvin's weird, fucked up plans about trying to rebirth her sister. But Marvin is a determined man, and he wants Lena back. June 5th, 1997, Rainer, presumably, was watching over Care in the house, and Anna went out to go run some errands. However,
Fun thing that just happened. What?
he then took her to the school basement, where he presumably works for his job, and
Do you see that? Look at how ugly you are now. Care squinted her eyes. The reflection was not clear at all, but as you began to describe her grisly deformities, she began to see them. Nobody wants to see you like this, you said.
while it's not explicitly stated, it could be assumed that Marvin, both verbally and maybe even physically, judging by the messy hair, abused Care. He was most likely spending this time while she was in the basement trying to convince her that she is not Care, that she is Lena. And that probably had some consequences on her mind. While Care was missing, Anna and the family, including Rainer, looked for her all over. They tried their best to find her, but they just couldn't find her. Rainer thought maybe she's in the school, but he didn't think to say it because, she's in the school. Somebody would have found her by now, right? And while this is never stated, I'd like to think when Rainer's saying fuck me and fuck you all, he's basically saying fuck me because I could have saved Care way sooner, and fuck you all for being a terrible family that got my little brother killed. As stated earlier, in 1995, Michael was killed, presumably through Marvin. And Marvin now kidnapping Care, and what was probably a cousin to him, Anna, seeing her distraught, that was most likely his final point. His cousin is distraught, his little brother's been killed by this one person, and now this other little kid he cares about, Care, is gone. And Marvin took her. And Rainer decided to get back at Marvin in a way I don't think anybody would have ever thought. And if anything, honestly it makes him just as mentally unstable as Marvin. He decided to take Petscop, a game he had been working on, and presumably was even making for his little brother, and decided to distort it into a game of accusing Marvin, the family, and just having it be this giant fuck you to the family. And the whole game was made, according to him, for Marvin. Care was locked in the school basement for 4 months. Care was only 5 years old when she was kidnapped. In November, 4 months now after Care's been kidnapped, Rainer decides to go to the school basement in an attempt to look for her.
Care B is scared and pounding on the door. I open it. It's so dark that I can't see her.
He opens up a door and finds her. But now she bolts out the building and runs outside of it and wandered around for about 2 days. Nobody knows what happens to her on the first day. She just ran, and after being locked in a dark basement for God knows how long, she covered her eyes the whole time. She didn't know where she was going. She just ran. But on November 12th, which was conveniently her birthday, she finally arrived back home. After this, Marvin presumably doesn't really play a role anymore, and it's unknown if he's still out there to this day. A presumably other victim of his that he tried rebirthing was somebody close to Paul, the person who plays the game, Belle, and apparently tried rebirthing her into somebody named Tiara. Although this isn't really ever properly explained, and if we really want to go off the walls here, perhaps Michael died as a victim of the rebirth process that Marvin was trying to do. Because, okay, I'm going to talk about a kind of sort of sad subject here. A lot of Petscop fans probably remember when the actual death of a child was brought up and the creator said, no, we don't, no. But basically they took this kid, covered them in blankets and pillows, and tried like making them crawl out to simulate being born out the womb. I don't know the full context, but those therapists are fucked in the head and deserve to have their genitals cut off for eternity. Okay, anyway, back to Petscop. If Marvin tried doing that same tactic to Michael, who was 7, yeah, he probably died, which would give Rainer more of a reason to hate Marvin. Eventually, in the year 2000, according to Paul, the family got the gift from Rainer, Petscop. And while it's not fully explained, judging by his description in Care A, where he says, no, go check your bathtub, it's often assumed by most fans that he actually ended up killing himself after he gave the game, and killed himself presumably in Anna's bathtub. Now, to make the subject a bit less depressing, let's talk about the game he made, Petscop, and how it was pretty fucking revolutionary for its time. Rainer decided to make it to where players' inputs and what they do in the game can help create NPCs. This is seen through Marvin and Belle or Tiara, as they're able to, what we see in the demos is shown up to Paul. The game creates these NPCs by taking these recordings and then puts them in the player's game. For different recordings, different characters have different heads. Well, some of them, not all of them. Presumably NPCs that are not important are marked with the triangle head, and Belle has this smiley face, and Marvin has a distorted, like, angry head that's all fucked and sideways. But anyway, now Rainer's dead, Michael's dead, Tom and Jill are still around, Anna is still around, but after all the trauma she's been through, presumably, she ends up giving up Care to her sister Jill, for Jill to now take care of Care. This is assumed in a scene where Jill is referred to as Care's mother. It's not known how Anna's doing. It's not known what Marvin's doing, if he's behind bars or not. But if you want to look at it nicely, Care's finally in a caring mother's arms. Anna can slowly try to recover from the trauma she's been through. And hey, maybe Marvin's slowly eating away inside at the things he's done. Although if he's as fucked as he is, he probably thinks what he did was right. All of this because a windmill and a friend disappeared.
Alright, so, this is just to, prove to you that I'm not lying about this game that I found.
Sorry if you hear my fan, it's a bit hot in the background for this part. So I want to go ahead and make some corrections and some theories about stuff that I might be right or wrong about. Firstly, Belle and Tiara. So, Belle doesn't have an official surname. It's not known who she's related to, but judging by a lot of the statements about Jill apparently saying she's not family, seeming to hate her, I assume she's just a friend that Jill hates. Now, Tiara is a Leskowitz person, so that is confirmed. I don't know why I didn't talk about her when I originally recorded the audio. Now, judging by the letter that's found in Petscop 23, a lot of people actually assume that perhaps Tiara is actually Care's adoptive mother. Now, I put corrections throughout the video, but there is a possibility Jill and Tom may actually be related to Marvin instead of Anna. I mean, it would still work. Anna would still be the aunt to Mike, and, you know, Jill and Tom would still be, you know, an uncle and aunt to Care. It would fit still, it's just surnames are swapped. This also might explain why Paul is a bit unnerved by Jill, because, you know, she's related to somebody that kidnapped a child. It also might explain why she tries to censor and hide things, and is presumably one of the main owners behind the Petscop channel after the family, quote, took over. Because a lot of the things that are censored involve Care and Marvin. So it would make sense that she's trying to cover Marvin's tracks, because that's her brother. Now, I'm not saying she's trying to defend Marvin or, you know, make it out like he's a good guy. I think she's just trying to hide what happened so people don't know about it. She's basically trying to hide family drama from getting out to the world. Next up is a theory I heard that, while at first may sound strange, actually has a lot of evidence to back it up. There's a theory that Care transitioned and swapped genders and became Paul. Now, I can already hear a redneck cocking their shotgun and ready to hit the dislike button, but listen to me here. Care was stuck in a basement at the age of 5 for 4 months, presumably being told she is not herself. She is not who she is. She probably developed a form of dysphoria that became gender dysphoria. Not to mention having her mother giving her away to someone else probably fucked with her, and is probably the reason Karen LM exists, because she thinks, my mom doesn't love me, my dad doesn't love me, no one loves me. That might be why Tiara's letter is so reassuring and nice, because she wants to remind Care, I care about you. Well, at the child library, when using Mike's eyebrows but Care's face, he later describes it in the series as his room. He says that him and Care are at the same age and share a very strong resemblance to each other physically. It also might explain the conversation, not how the hell it got in there, but that weird conversation with Jill and Care, quote. Perhaps Jill was unaware that Paul is now Care, and was maybe trying to avoid the conversation of where the papers were. But it might explain why the family is maybe forcing him to play to try to make him remember you are Care, which is really fucked when you look at it, because they're basically doing what Marvin did. That would also give Paul a reason for being uncomfortable with Jill, if she's basically forcing him to remember, you're not Paul, you are Care. You know, I feel like that'd make you pretty uncomfortable. But to summarize what I think the story is, really quickly, without weird theories and merging timeline bullshit. Anna, Lena, and Marvin were all taking a photo near a windmill, but then Lena and the windmill disappeared. Marvin decided to marry Anna and tried to rebirth Lena through his daughter Care. Eventually, his weird beliefs got Anna upset and they divorced. Marvin slowly lost custody more and more until he got sick of it and kidnapped Care and threw her in the school basement where he worked as a music teacher. The family searched for him, and Rainer had a suspicion that Care was in the school basement but didn't think to check. Marvin in the past had ran over Rainer's brother, Michael, which gave Rainer a reason for hating Marvin. After Marvin kidnapped Care, Rainer, who was babysitting her, had an even bigger reason to hate Marvin, and started to take his game, Petscop, and turn it into a cryptic puzzle for the family to solve, serving as a giant fuck you to the family. Eventually, Care was rescued and got out of the school basement and wandered around for 2 days until she wandered back home. Anna eventually got super stressed out and decided to give up Care for adoption and gave her to Tiara. Now, if Care and Paul are separate people, that's where this part gets a bit split. Care either lived on and was able to live a happy life normally, or Care then transitioned into Paul, and that's where the story pretty much ends. Paul plays Petscop, discovers the family's tragic past, And yeah, that's it. That's all the mysteries wrapped up. Why did Paul stop moving when Marvin said, I'm gonna come for you in a game? You know, his NPC. How did the NPCs talk if they're not in a demo? How the hell are the players able to move around so far apart if they're, you know, playing on a PS1, which basically requires both players to be in the same place? Who the fuck is Tiara, and why is her relation to Belle so highlighted? Who is Belle? Who is she related to, and why is she sometimes called Tiara in the game? How in the fuck did a conversation from 2017 get into an old PS1 game? How the fuck does a windmill disappear? Now, this video is not a conclusion of everything. I can't explain everything at Petscop. There are some things I just cannot fucking explain. And I feel like that's the beauty of Petscop, is the fact there's no full picture. But I feel like too many people try to find the final puzzle piece. We're playing a puzzle game here, but we're missing a few pieces, and people are so busy trying to find the missing pieces, they don't look at what's already been made. Petscop, to me, is not a story about merging timelines or some bullshit. It's a story about a tragic family and the horrors that the kids in said family have gone through. I feel like no one looks at the characters and tries to think, how did they feel during all of this? Rainer's presumably younger brother was ran over by a car. Belle was apparently, at least hinted by Rainer, a victim of rebirth from Marvin. That had to have scarred her just like it did Care. If it's anything like what Care went through, Belle probably left with a few scars in her memory. Rainer is, in all honesty, just as fucked as Marvin for taking this family drama and instead of contacting the police or confronting them, talking dirt about them in a fucking PS1 game. And my own theory here I'm going to throw in, I'd like to think the reason the family actually made Paul play was simply for closure on what happened. They wanted to see if Rainer knew something that they didn't. And he did. And that's the only reason they forced Paul to play, unknowingly sending his mental state down a spiral. And I love just how anticlimactic Petscop 23's ending is, because look, the garage door's open, the sky is blue. But what the fuck really happened? Let's be honest here. Paul, if Care is presumably Paul, he just unlocked some terrible memories. The family was reminded of horrible drama all the way back from the 1990s. And they didn't do anything but just finally get some closure. That's all they got. They weren't given something grand for forcing Paul to play this. They just got a little bit more info about tragedies that happened to the family. And that's it. I don't think it's about merging timelines. I don't think it's about worlds colliding. I think that Petscop is just about fucked up families and terrible memories from the past. And that you will be able to move on from the past, but you can never escape it. If the trans theory is true, Care was able to recover and transition into Paul and was able to forget her past. But Petscop reminded him, you cannot escape it. The past still happened. Marvin still kidnapped Care. You can't reverse time. And while sure the past is just a black void behind you, there's still at least light in front of you, and you should at least go to it. While the horrors of what Mark has done can never be erased, and the trauma he's caused many people, they can at least move on and just focus on the future. Anna hopefully has recovered from what she's dealt with. Care, if she didn't transition into Paul, is hopefully living a happy life with Tiara. Tiara is hopefully a nice, caring mother. And hopefully Marvin's rotting in hell. Like I said earlier, Petscop is a puzzle. And while we have most of it done, we'll never find the final pieces. But everyone just looks for the final pieces and never looks at what's been made. And what's been made is a truly tragic story.